Hi, this is Regina Y. Favors with Overcoming Setback series, and I want to talk about working through financial setback. This is part of the book Overcoming Setback, which will be available August 2021. So working through financial setback begins with you addressing your belief system, especially if part of your financial setback has a lot to do with you not setting boundaries with family, friends, or anybody, especially when it comes to managing your finances. So working through financial setback will require you to look at your belief system, have the courage to begin to address why you are in a financial setback, and then think about ways in which you can overcome your setback by creating a vision for yourself. So take some time to listen to this audio. The book will become available August 2021. Also hit the notification bell if you are interested in further audios, as well as subscribe to the channel. Thank you for listening to this audio. So one very important key to consider when you are thinking about financial setback is do not become financially homeless helping others. And that's hard to really look at and address because we would never think that in helping someone we are becoming financially homeless. But if a person is asking you, say for instance, for a portion of their rent, that tells you that they are either not making enough money or they are not managing their money. So then if you give your rent over, because that's exactly what you are doing, you are giving part of your rent to help them with their rent. And that's just an example. If you got a person who asks you for gas money all the time, they seem to not have enough gas money at the end of the week or at the beginning of the week, but they have a car. And if you have a car, you should have already planned for insurance, any upkeep costs, gas money, etc. So that's another example. So when you're thinking about what you give over in terms of your finances to someone else, make sure that you are covered yourself. Don't become financially homeless trying to help others. So that's what I want to talk about in terms of how we create financial setbacks and how we need to overcome them. Proverbs 18:13 reads, "He that answereth a matter before he heareth it, it is folly and shame to him." And answering a matter before you hear something is basically answering it before you understand what the person actually needs. What happens with us a lot of times is we volunteer before we get a good understanding, maybe because we want to please the person, we don't want the person mad at us, or maybe because we just really maybe not even care. However, if you give that person something in terms of, financially, one time without questioning their motives or the reasons for asking for the money, rest assured that person is going to come back and ask you again for some more money. And the problem with it is sometimes we give blindly. Sometimes a person asks for, $1 or $5 or $10 or $20 or $30, and before you know it, they have graduated us in a sense to giving them $100 or paying portions of their other responsibilities that they are responsible for. I'm not talking about individuals who have experienced some kind of downtime due to a recession or lost their jobs or something like that. I'm talking about everyday people who actually have a job and turn around and ask you for money because they want you to fund their lifestyle, but they don't want to fund their lifestyle with their own money. So he that answereth the matter before he heareth it, it is folly and shame to him. Heareth it is when you don't have a true understanding about what it is they need, and you volunteer and risk your own financial management just to save them, just to people please, just to maybe get them off your back or something like that. But always remember, they will come back for more if they're not challenged. So remember that always you are an adult. And when you allow yourself to become financially homeless, and you may not look at it like that, when someone asks you for money and you give it to them and you don't really have it to give to them, which makes you financially homeless, and homeless comes much later. It's not always immediate unless you are giving somebody your rent money for that month. Then it is you who has to remember that you are an adult, just like that person is an adult, and that you are 100% responsible for yourself. That means you need to make sure that you are covered before you cover anybody else. You know, I think it really applies even to family members, even your mother. I think you need to make sure you are covered first, so that if something happens with her, she can have somewhere to live. Not everybody you cover financially will be there for you. They may do something, maybe to give you something to send you on your way, but in the way that you cover other people, not everybody thinks like that. And so that's why you always have to make sure that you are careful in how you cover people, because you they do not see or do not adopt the same kind of vision that you have regarding helping people and being there for people. And most of what you do, if you are engaging in risk and risky financial behavior, most of what you're doing is basically people pleasing, trying to make sure they have what they need before you have what you need. So do not become financially homeless. Nothing you do for someone should make you homeless. The money you give to a friend, a family member, or any other person should be subject to limitations. And one of those limitations is you. And that means you have to remember your main limitation is you as an adult. That you have to make sure that you have what you need. So when you're giving money, giving money can also be sort of a belief system, but people who usually give money have money. And this is not to say that you can't help anyone if you don't have any money. You don't have the kind of money that some people have. And so when you give money to someone, for example, before you understand their problem, you are giving irresponsibly. You are being irresponsible with your money, and you are being irresponsible in teaching them how to manage money. Because if they have to always continue to come back to you, then you're just going to continue to perpetuate irresponsibility. You are suggesting to the recipient that he or she can depend on you without limits, without boundaries, and in perpetuity until you change the dynamics of your relationship with that person. And perpetuity means forever. And that's how you have to think about it, that if you're giving somebody something, make sure that as you give it to them, that this is not the type of situation that you're going to have to continue to fund them for their life. It depends. There are exceptions to the rule. You may have to take in your aging mother. You may have to pay portions of your mother's life responsibilities as she is aging, or if she is disabled, right? It just depends on what the situation is. There are exceptions to the rule, but always remember that the more you give to a person who doesn't really need it, the more you become bitter about it once you realize that the person has been using you, and the more you are less likely to help people when they actually really need it. There is a person who needs help, and the more you are distracted by helping this person over here, the less likely you're going to recognize the real person who needs your help. So this is a typical anecdote. So funding someone's lifestyle, people will use you to fund their lifestyle, but they will also use you to hide the fact that they do not know how to manage their own finances. So in my personal, I've used this often, in multiple audios, because it works. So there was this friend of mine at at a job we used to work on. I was sort of like 19, 20 years old. And she said she needed money, and I thought she needed money, and we both had the same job. I knew she had a job, you know. I knew where she worked, so to speak. So I figured, well, if she needs some help, then I give her the money, because I know she could pay me back. Well, she comes a couple of days later on her shift, and she comes with fresh hair, fresh new shoes, fresh outfit, hands painted, everything. And I'm wondering to myself, so where did she get the money to pay for all that? Because I'm thinking to myself, I can't pay for my own hair to get fixed. And she basically told me that she used the money that I gave her to pay for her hair. So she basically used my money to fund her lifestyle. You should never ask anyone for money if you don't really need it. Getting your hair fixed was not a necessity. She could have easily washed her hair and did her hair herself. And so once I realized what she was doing, I was done. She tried to ask me for more money again. I said no. And so I avoided her as well. So they will flaunt a certain lifestyle for which they have not paid or funded. They give off the notion that they have it together. However, the fact that you must ask someone for money and you are not a child or teenager and or disabled, then that should be informative. So it should be informative even if you are experiencing a downtime, that you have to ask for money, that you didn't plan ahead for issues. And again, I had a downtown time during the recession, 2006 to 2013. And I lost my teaching job. Then I was out of work and I tried to freelance. I had to move in with my mother. There were issues with that. Then I was homeless and had to go from shelter to shelter because of time limits, and just really trying to get my life back on track. And it wasn't until 2013 that I was able to get back on with my institution I teach at. However, I understand that I was going through a downtime, but as I really look at my situation in a post-setback mode of thinking, that there were ample opportunities in my 20s that I could have planned for life's little setbacks. Just because you don't always know that you're going to have a setback does not necessarily mean that you can't plan for it. How many times have we listened to financial gurus talk about having an emergency savings plan? Having the types of financial plans that if you needed to tap into some money, you can do that. So I believe that we have, no matter what we understand to be true in that moment, we still have to look towards our 30s and our 40s. And that even in my 20s, I'm not saying I made a whole lot of money, but I do think back that there was ample opportunity. 20s is a long time. From 20 to 29, that's a long time. And so there was some sort of opportunity that I could have taken to save money so that going forward, if something happened, I would have it. I'm not saying I would have everything, but I would have something. And so I think about that, how I got distracted funding everyone else's lifestyle when they actually had money. They had, family members that they could have depended on. They had much more than I did at the time. So that's a quick anecdote. Think about it in terms of your own experiences as well. So questions: how many times have you had issues with finances? Do you have a financial management plan? How did moving in a friend and or boyfriend affect your finances? Do you struggle with managing credit cards? And have you ever stopped paying your debt obligations? So taking the last two, of course, there's going to come a time that if you are down, the only thing that you can really pay are your basic necessities. And so that means you have to adopt a different financial management strategy in down times. I do wonder then still, how can you plan? How could you plan for those down times when you need to pay your credit cards? I believe that if you are in a downtime, you need to make sure that you pay your rent, your food, your transportation, etc. But I don't believe you need to stop paying your debt obligations, because if you stop paying your debt obligations, that's part of your belief system that you don't pay people you owe, right? And that's why it's important that you don't get too many credit cards that you cannot afford, because we all could experience a setback. And knowing that we are all now in setback resulting from the pandemic, we have to choose wisely. We have to choose what's most important to pay until we can get to a better situation. So therefore, it's always important to have a financial management plan when it comes to paying your credit cards. It is also important to look at your finances and look at those times when you have given money over to a friend, especially to a boyfriend. If you are giving money to a boyfriend, and you're not married to that person, that's something to think about, because you shouldn't fund your boyfriend's lifestyle. And he's a man. He's a man. A man should be able to take care of himself. And if you are taking care of a man, for one, that's not the person to marry. And for two, that's telling about how you are taking care of an adult who can actually take care of him or herself. Now, like I said, there are exceptions to the rule. He may be down. You may be, say it's an engagement or something like that. But the problem with women, sometimes we hustle to try to make things right in their lives, and it works to our detriment, because then they get back on their feet, and sometimes they leave, sometimes they don't contribute, sometimes they only want to go 50-50, even though you were giving 100% of your financial investment into them. And so these are things I want you to think about, because moving in somebody who is not financially able to take care of themselves, even if you both decide to go 50-50, is moving in a person who is not responsible, who doesn't have the character, who doesn't have the work ethic to make sure that they can cover their part of the responsibilities. So this leads us to thinking about, feeling gamed. To feel gamed in a situation when you believe you are trying to help someone is a tough pill. So you genuinely believe that people need help when they say they need help. And you honestly would never think that a person would just ask you for money just to ask you for money. But I have experienced this in my lifespan. And, had I really paid attention in my 20s, I wouldn't have had trouble in my late 30s to 40s, when I lost my job, became homeless, had to get back on track. The person can be financially dysfunctional, which leads to gaming you to fund their lifestyle. And so, how many times have you dealt with people who are financial professional beggars? They are financial professional beggars. They do not adopt a work ethic. They don't work on a job. They don't believe that it is necessary to do so when they have you or have everybody else. And that is just strange. It's kind of like a vagabond, wilderness wanderer. I mean, their life is predicated on you giving them money, and how long. I don't understand how people can live like that for a long time. I've always been a go-getter. And so it was very much a struggle to have to move in with my mother and live in homeless shelters and things like that at that time. It was hard to find work. It was hard to find sustainable work. The freelancing wasn't paying me a whole lot, but it was paying me enough. And that was just a very hard type of feeling to think about. So I want you to think about that, feeling gained when someone asks you for money, but also think about it in terms of yourself. You're gaming yourself. That's an even harder pill to swallow, because you don't think that when you are helping people that you are doing yourself wrong, but you basically are. Because if you're giving something that you don't have out of some internal pressure, then you are essentially gaming yourself. So I want you to think about writing the vision of exiting a financial setback. When you are in a financial setback, you must envision yourself beyond a place providing for everyone else but yourself. You have a right to fund you, and you do not have a right to get someone to fund you and your lifestyle just because you messed up in giving them all your money. Write down the vision of how you will set boundaries with family members and friends so you can achieve what you want to do, and use the money you have to fund your projects. All your money given over to one person prevents you from helping others who may need your help. The third bullet point I think is very interesting. Writing the vision down of how you will set boundaries with family members and friends so you can achieve what you want to do and use the money you have to fund your projects. That's important because you should know the people that you deal with. You should know um, the patterns of your brother. You should know the patterns of your sister. You should know the patterns of your mother, your father, your best friend, your best cousin. You should know their patterns by now. It should not be a surprise to you, especially if you grew up with the person. Like, I had a cousin who was always getting me into stuff because she was troubled as an individual, suffering from childhood trauma. So she needed the chaos that she was getting us into because it seemed to be something that was functional for her. And once I realized as an adult, through some sort of self-reflection, thinking about my childhood, I realized that I could not go forward with her in relationship anymore, because she managed to get us into some things that could have been dangerous for me. There were some things that we got into that I could have been raped, could have been murdered, I could have been hurt in some kind of way. And so I had to make that decision. When it came to writing the vision down for family members, I'm not going to give anything unless I know I am financially covered myself, my rent, my food, my transportation, and then also make sure I have extra money just in case. We had a situation down here in Texas with the weather, and the electrical went out for many people in their homes, and so some people had to go and stay in a motel for a few days until everything was worked out, because they were out of water as well. And it was ice on the ground, snowing, all kinds of things. And I thought to myself, that's interesting. And the first question that came to mind, that what if something like that happened where the whole house shut down, is cold, no heat, no water? Would I have the financial resources to move into a motel? I don't have to move into a hotel. I'm gonna have to be in a fancy hotel, just a regular Motel 6. Would I have those resources, those financial resources, to be able to do that for at least a week? And that's something to think about. And then what if the housing flooded, right? Say, for instance, you were in one of those areas where there's heavy flooding. Okay, would you have the money to move into a hotel for 3 months until you get everything situated, without waiting, for the insurance check? A lot of times that takes a long time to come. So do you have those resources to do that? And that's something that I've been thinking about more and more and more, especially as I am much older now. And so I would want to make sure that I'm covered in those areas. So that would be a vision that I would care about, because I think the weather is going to get even worse. I think the pandemic is going to create even more opportunities for us to work from home. That means that we may have to update our skills, especially if jobs require um, technology. Okay. And so those are part of your financial management planning out of setback that you need to consider. We need to discern the times. We need to consider the times. The times are not the same as they were even just a year ago. And so that's something that I want you to think about. Write the vision of how you're going to get out of your setback, out of your financial setback, but also how you're going to sustain yourself when maybe the nation is enduring a financial setback as well. So I want you to think about these questions for further reflection. Where have you stopped financially? Are there outstanding financial issues that you have not addressed? What are your plans for reconciling financial misunderstandings? And of course, I think about that in terms of belief system. I hear people all the time. I help people who help themselves, right? And I think to myself, well, if the person can help himself or herself, why are you helping that person? So there's a financial misunderstanding there because you are choosing to only help people who already have the financial resources to help themselves. That's why I think the rich stay rich, because we continue to fund their lifestyles and continue to make sure they are covered where we are struggling just to make rent or mortgage at the beginning of the month. So that's what I want you to think about as well. So here is a journaling activity. Take some time to journal your attitude towards finances and why change is important. Here are 2 questions and a statement. So should I create a long-term vision for managing my finances? Am I financially homeless? Finances are important because, and you should answer that sentence. And then what are my plans for moving myself out of financial setback? And financially homeless, just to make sure you have a good understanding of it, financially homeless is going back and forth in your belief system, not being stern and focused and having a standard when it comes to financial management. That you go with the wind. You're sort of double-minded. You're not sure what you believe, because every time someone comes to you with a financial need, you don't test it to see if they actually have a financial need. So you give out of fear, based in some sort of desire to make sure that they have what they need, but you don't give out of faith or courage to maybe say no if they are calling you with that need. And so you tend to be financially homeless because you don't have a really good understanding of how finances should work, what you should do, how you should manage money, how you should manage output, how you should manage input. So applying the 7 steps of setback, take some time to listen to that audio where I introduce the 7 steps of setback, but we're just going to go through a quick line by line. So say, for instance, your issue was or is financial management, and you want to look at missed opportunity. So what understanding did you miss concerning financial mismanagement, right? Punishment, what was the punishment you felt? So you gave the understanding that you missed could have been, I shouldn't have given that portion of my money because it was my rent. And then the punishment could be that you ended up having to pay your rent late, so there is a fee, a late fee, right? And then pain, how significant was that pain? Well, having to let go of that late fee, knowing that you don't really have a whole lot of money to do that with, because you still have to pay other types of necessities, that could be pain for you. Then correction, did you enter in complete correction, meaning that when that person came back around again and asked you for money, did you give it to them? Did you learn anything from the pain you felt and having to let go additional money that you did not have? Did you address that? and then you go through a correction phase. And then how did you recover? So recovery, how did you recover? The recovery could be that you make sure you didn't give the person money the second time they came back around, and you made sure that you had extra money for just in case. Because again, sometimes people don't always have to ask you for money. You could mess up your own finances, just by yourself. But it is important to recover. How did you recover? Did you make more money? Did you put in more hours to close out that financial gap and give that person money that you really didn't have? So recovery is important, because you can continue this road of giving your money out to people who don't need it and never recover. And then there could be a day that you wake up and you are financially homeless. And so that's something you want to think about. Restoration, did you receive any mentoring? So maybe read up on financial mismanagement and how to financially manage yourself. Did you talk to a friend and say to her or him, okay, I can't keep doing this. Every time I turn around, every time it looks like I want to go forward financially, I get this person who always needs help, and I need to know how to deal with her. I don't know how to deal with him. I don't know how to deal with this family member. And then the person you are talking to gives you tips, gives you strategies, okay? So then that means you are not alone, that you can still receive mentoring and sustain yourself out of setback. And then advance, what are your plans for staying out of setback? Meaning, if you are a person who wants to give extra money to someone or be available, okay, then make that part of your plan, not part of some surprise. So you want to set aside $100 per month and create sort of like a petty cash account, so that it is separate from any of your main core money, and you put it in a jar in the kitchen, and it's money that you take out for pizza, for going out, for any issue that you may have with your car or something like that. And it's not you having to go to the ATM to take something out of some sort of hurriedness, some hastiness. That you have already set aside a $100 of petty cash per month, so that just in case somebody helps you, you're not pulling it out of your main money. That could be a plan to stay out of financial setback. So I want you to think about this in terms of metacognitively. What did you learn from this part of the lecture? What did you learn about financial mismanagement? What did you learn about funding someone's lifestyle with your money? So take some time to journal your learning progress to date concerning financial management, and especially concerning financial homelessness. And that's what I want to leave you with, because you want to learn something. That's how you stay out of setback, is when you are learning. If you're not learning something and you are just giving money blindly or investing in things before you have a very good understanding of that, that's going to be a problem for you down the road. It was a problem for me. I was helping other people in my 20s, part of my 30s. I was helping everybody else, but I was not thinking about myself as an adult. And so maybe on some level, I was giving like I was a child on the playground, and thinking to myself that I don't know, maybe I was not thinking of myself as an adult. Just because you have a place to live and you fund your place to live and you have a job, sure, it looks like you are an adult, but you may not have the mindset of an adult. Because if you had the mindset of an adult, you would make sure that you were covered first before you covered anybody else. So I want you to think about the learning progress. All right, so like, subscribe, and visit my website, reginayfavors.com. I have video there as well as content. I put a lot of my videos on YouTube, so my channel is Regina Y. Favors. The book will be available August 2021. So it's Overcoming Setback, 5 Keys for Entering and Exiting Correction. Thank you very much for listening to this audio.